And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I am your host, Wes Tankersley. You know, we have to sit here and go back and forth about this because I still say it, but my co-host, Robert Watson, over here, because we have a co-host now, and I was going to say morning coffee, but I started thinking about some things that were going on, and we'll get to the elephant in the room, I feel like, a little bit later, but we're going to talk about something that happened that was pretty cool, and I think it kind of ties into a lot of things that life, you put yourself in the right situation, you put yourself where you want to be, and things just kind of come together. So let's kind of talk about this thing. You know, we talk about sports and baseball and football and whatever, like all the time, about all these people who kind of like Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. We talk a lot about like how they've done these things, and like Kobe Bryant's that way too, and put themselves in the right situation, worked really hard, done all these things. And this isn't one of those situations where I like busted my butt and got wherever it is, but I'm sitting on One Drink Wednesday and Robert's over there smiling because he sent me something. And I'm like, well, I'm in the middle of this live. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Whatever, blah, 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 blah. So we finish off the live. It was a really cool live that we had on One Drink Wednesday. If you haven't checked that out, we do that 7 Pacific every Wednesday. My friend Jay Finning and I do. And we had Whistle Pig, who is a bourbon company, because we're trying to get these drink sponsors on. We want to get alcohol, bourbon, beer, whatever, a drink sponsor, right? So we got Whistle Pig on. It was a really cool story, really awesome. I get a text message, bumps across the screen, and it's from Robert. And I'm like, well, he knows I'm live. I'll see it after I get done. So it just so happens that, why don't you tell a story, Robert? Why don't you tell us how this kind of came about? Because I didn't know that this was someone that you knew. You know, let's just let you tell a little bit of your part of this thing.
Yeah, so about an hour before that, I had a good friend, my best friend. She's an amazing lady and a cosplayer. What that means, a costume player, right? And she happens to do one costume which is called Jasmine, and she looks just like Jasmine. And so she got the opportunity and got this call to go out and be part of Princess Night. And she's not a sports person. She doesn't even know. She said, so I'm supposed to be someplace for Princess Night. I said, where? She said, some stadium. I said, stadium? I said, it's baseball season. That's a field. But whatever. And so she's driving along and we're on video and she says, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I go, okay, well, how long before? She said, I'm supposed to be there in like 20 minutes. I said, okay, let me look it up. Where are you supposed to be? She says, Emerald something. And I went, oh, okay. So here I get on the computer and I find out that she's going to an Emeralds baseball game, right? And it just so happens, she says, but I don't understand. I don't understand. Why am I there at a baseball game? And so I'm fishing around on the Instagram account and I see that it's Princess Wednesday. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's Princess Wednesday. And I happen to flip over and there's this picture of a Major League Baseball player named Will Clark. And I went, oh, that's Will Clark. That is Wes's favorite baseball player. And she says, who's Will Clark? I said, doesn't matter. He's Wes's favorite baseball player. And she goes, oh, okay. And I look and he's there. And I'm like, he's actually there. Hey, he's there tonight. And she says, okay, well, I don't understand. Would you do me a favor? Would you get a chance? Because I know you're going to be able to get a chance to get on the field because you're one of their costume players and stuff. I said, would you give a shout out to Wes, to Will Clark? And she says, but I don't even know what he does. I said, it doesn't matter. He's a Major League Baseball player. And just say Wes. And she said, okay, what's Wes' last name? I said, Tankersley. She goes, oh, no, there's no way I can remember that name. So it'd be just Wes. And I said, yeah. And so she goes to the thing. She's lost, confused, doesn't know where to park. And so I say, good luck. And I get off, right? And so she goes and does her thing. She gets up there. They kind of introduce and then they say, hey, do you guys want to go down on the field beforehand? And she says, sure, I'll go down on the field. She goes down the field. She starts to walk. Ready? She sees this really cute baseball player on the Emeralds team. And she kind of cranes her neck over to it. She goes, oh, he's cute. She leans her head back. She goes, that's Will Clark, because I had sent her a picture of him literally off the Instagram. She goes, that's Will Clark. Hold on. Give me my phone. She goes, Mr. Clark. And he's looking, Jasmine. He responds to her like, oh my gosh, you're Jasmine. Would you do me a favor? Would you take a picture with me? And she said, of course. And he sets her, and there's this really cute picture that I sent you of them two together. And then she says, would you do me a favor? Would you give a shout out to my friend Wes? What's his last name? I can't pronounce it. He goes, sure, I'll be glad to. Sits there, puts the camera out there, gives a big shout out to Wes. So she sends it back over to me and says, hey, I got it. Make sure to send it to Wes. Here it is. And it's just really nice, of course. Hey, Wes, this is, Will Clark, blah, 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 blah. And it was real funny because had she not chosen to go down the field, had she not been distracted by the hot baseball player on the Emeralds team, right, she wouldn't have been looking in the dugout. So I just love how the chemistry of things. So this all happened 25 minutes before the video was formed. In other words, this wasn't any grand plan. This is what I like to talk about the universe, when you just kind of get into sync and you just open yourself to possibilities and you put yourself in that kind of place. And magic stuff happens. And so that all came together from beginning to end. In other words, I had no idea where she was going, right? And had you and I not had these back and forths, I wouldn't have known Will Clark was your favorite baseball player, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course,
go ahead.
Then, of course, Will Clark is just so kind, right?
Yeah.
And he was kind of really, you can see the smile on his face because he's standing next to Princess Jasmine. Right. So he's happy. Everybody's happy. So it's really, really cool.
I kind of knew like you got to get that feeling like it was genuine, and he knew that he was making someone's day, and he knew that was going to be something that someone would remember forever. And I posted it on Instagram. I told you I was going to, because I mean, to me, like when you sent it to my first reaction was like, what, did you find this video somewhere where he said, hey, what's up, Wes, to some guy named Wes? And it was like, it just all came together, and it was just so crazy that was it. And I listened to him and Eric Burns. Like, I mean, in my studio, I have a Will Clark bobblehead with Eric Burns, who never played with Will Clark, but they do this podcast, and Eric Burns' bobblehead is he's throwing the ball to Will Clark. That's how I got it set up. Like Burnsy's throwing it over to him. And it was super cool because it's just, I don't know, like I listened to him talk, and I love the Giants and I love what's going on with them right now. But the last couple of years, it wasn't that same mentality that they have now. And they're not playing well, but they're going to be like, it takes time with a new coach and all the stuff, because the coach that they had before was just completely different. And there's all these different ways of doing things. I'm more of this old school person. And that's what he is. Like he's a no nonsense person. And they talked about maybe making him the head coach, and he's decided that he doesn't want to do it, and he doesn't want to get into it because he just doesn't have time. But he travels with the teams, right? And he goes and meets with the kids, and that's what they talk about, these people that they're working with and how he's helping them to be better, to get some of that old school mentality, because this new type of baseball, it's just like basketball or anything else you watch, like the Jordan era versus the LeBron era, right? Like it's a completely different game. And it's hard to watch these kids just go up there and think the number one thing to do is hit home runs. And he's like, no, we're going to learn how to hit it to every part of the field. We're going to do the things defensively that we need to do, because if we don't do those, then, the little things take care of themselves. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's kind of one of those amazing things as you look at how things come together to make that kind of creation. Well, it just so happens that Will Clark also is a spokesman for autism, right?
Yep.
And in this case, my friend's, one of her kids is on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't know that. And she goes, oh my gosh. She said, I wish I could have talked to him about that. I said, doesn't matter. I said, you'll be called back out to Emeralds Field, and he'll probably be there so you can get a chance to say hi again. But it was one of those interesting connects on multiple different levels that she just didn't have the time to explore, but she just didn't know. Yeah. So, but again, it was just kind of one of those magical moments where everything kind of came together, worked out perfectly. And, again, that's what I mean. When you open yourself up to life has an amazing way. But if you have a lot of what I call preset conditions for what things are supposed to look like, a lot of times you get really, really disappointed because your expectations don't match.
Right.
And so that's one of the struggles that I think people have. But if you kind of open yourself up, magic things happen. I mean, like, come on. It's just, but I mean, she's there as one of their players in their what I called it, Princess Wednesday.
Yep.
So, she's got an even shot at getting a chance to get down on the field and see him. And he looks like an affable guy. So, why not? Plus, she's dressed up like Princess Jasmine. I mean,
Yeah.
how bad? Yeah. So it was very, very cool.
Yeah.
Good morning, Steph.
This has happened a couple times, and I'll throw these, like this connection between you and me. We have never physically met, and we have talked quite a bit. And like for you to know that about me and to make that happen, it's completely awesome. If you guys are just joining us, just know that we're talking about Will Clark. Robert's friend got a chance to get me a shout out from my favorite baseball player of all time. So it was super exciting. Jay's one of those people that it's kind of the same thing. Like I was able, there's this one time, and there's an episode if you guys want to go check it out, where I kind of recap what happened. But I'm a big fan of Adam Carolla. It's the same thing. And I got to FaceTime with Adam Carolla based on this conversation that I had with Jay, because Jay goes to this car show every year. And there was Adam Carolla, and he's like, "Hey man, would you do that?" He goes, "Yeah, let's," he goes, "Hey, my friend's a really big fan, blah, 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 blah." He goes, "Well, let's FaceTime him." And they just 9:00 at night, I'd jump out of bed, go downstairs. Like I'm just kind of a mess, but I get myself kind of together, and I get to talk to Adam Carolla on the phone. So, I mean, these are just really cool things that I feel like the universe kind of puts those things together, but you also have to kind of pursue them and make that, happen.
I had a buddy of mine. We were out in of a bunch of stories like this. We were out in LA. We were on Sunset Boulevard, basically out at a little cafe thing. And he says, "Man," he says, "now that we're out here, I just can't wait till we get an opportunity to see a star." And I said, "Dude, have you not been looking around?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, and I kind of looked at the next table. I kind of leaned over, and the guy, the actor, leans over, looks at me, and I go, "Do you mind?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Turn around. That's Rob Lowe." And then Rob Lowe raises his hand, and I'm going,
Yeah, there's your sign.
My daughter had done the same thing. She gets in the elevator. We're in Aspen. She gets in the elevator, and there's one other gentleman in the elevator, and he's leaning against the elevator, and he's on his phone, right? Just kind of playing with his phone. She goes, "Dad, when are we going to meet famous people?" And he just kind of looks at me, and I kind of look at him like, "Do you mind?" And he's like, "Nah." I said, "Sweetheart, that's the Prime Minister of Canada." Yeah. She goes, "Oh, hi." He goes, "Hi."
They got to know that but then they don't want to say anything. So
no, because you don't want to, because everybody's trying to chill, right?
Yeah.
They're not up on a podium or anything. So they're just really trying to chill. But it is the funny look on her face because, I think she was like 14 at the time, right? She's all fired up about meeting, people and meeting, because she knew there were a lot of people there for the weekend because it was the Aspen Institute. But it was just curious because we've seen lots of events. Like my brother-in-law had done the same thing. And I said, you can look behind you. It's Hillary Clinton. And he goes, "Huh?" And he turns around. I said, "Dude, come on, man. Relax." Yeah.
Pretty crazy what can happen if you put yourself out there. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Absolutely. It's kind of amazing. And remember that most of the time people are really, really accommodated because they're just people.
Yep. Hey, this is a good time for us to talk about Magic Mind. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, every morning I've been taking one of these. I just got my newest shipment. They do a subscription program. If you want to come check it out, you can go to magicmind.com/West20, get a discount. You get 20% off a one-time purchase or 48% off your first subscription, which is a monthly thing. It's kind of a great deal, but it's kind of like an energy shot. It's got green tea, it's got matcha, it's got all those things that are not crazy for your system. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, it's really good. I like it. It's been helping me to get through the day. And check it out and let us know. Robert, I'd be a little bit remiss if we didn't talk about the kind of elephant that's in the room right now. We talked a little bit about it this morning, and there was an assassination on former President Trump, who is candidate running to be president again, and it's an interesting situation. And I think that you might have a little bit of insight on it. And I know you can't talk about everything, but you can talk about whatever. And we need to talk about it. We need to unpack this. Love him or hate him. Like my whole thing on this deal is love him or hate him. There are too many people who are saying that, hey, man, that guy missed. Like this is in my mind, that's complete bullshit for someone to say something like that. I would never expect people to say that about Biden. I would never expect people to say that about Trump or any president or any person who serves in a public office. It's a human being, and it's insane that people are talking that way, and it's making the round on social media. And let's kind of unpack it. Let's talk about what happened.
Yeah. So let me digress for just a second. I was in uniform in '81 when the attempt on Ronald Reagan's life, and I was born in '61, which means that in my lifetime I've seen JFK, RFK, MLK, Malcolm X. I mean, it's been an unfortunate. The '60s were a very, very tough time. This is an unfortunate situation that I think a lot of people didn't perceive would happen. Unfortunately, in this polarized world, it gets very, very tough. Um, Lots of problems with this attempt. Um, this was an epic security failure. One of the things that happened back in the '90s when we had went into Bosnia was my old unit had basically called and asked me to come back to head security for NATO forces, because one of the things strategic intelligence people are really good at is providing security, because we understand the environment, right? And that's not one of my primary tasks, but I understood it enough to be able to plot out things, and I understand things about high ground and close security, running close protection for a celebrity or a diplomat. That's something we're accustomed to doing, and so you just have to understand that protection for dignitaries or whatever is more about a show of force than the ability to ward off all things. Playing defense is very hard. Okay, very hard. So let's go ahead and give kudos to Secret Service and all the people that are trying to get the job done. Now,
Right.
that being said, epic failures. I've seen the shots of the terrain and everything in the situation, and you let a guy get within 100 yards, and he was able to get to an elevated position. And so the situation you're trying to do is anytime you're looking at a potential threat situation, you got to control. You have to have what's called positive control of all the elevated positions. You cannot allow your enemy to get high ground, because why? Because he's lobbing downhill at you.
Yeah.
You don't want to get into that position. So not only was he able to get high ground, but he was able to get within 100 yards. That's ridiculous with a weapon.
Yeah, the
Um,
the insanity of this whole thing is that like you see the map, you see the layout. Like there's a lot of things that drove me a little bit crazy about it. A friend of mine sent me the when it happened. He sent me a video of it right off the bat. I'm like, I didn't even know, because like many people, I don't even have regular TV. So like the majority of my stuff comes from Fox News, CNN, Apple News.
right.
Like I look at both sides of it. I kind of go through it and look and see, but I was interested because we've talked about media a lot on the podcast and how it can portray this whole situation as something. And it was amazing to me that the first hour of this whole thing, it was possible attempt on Trump's life. And you obviously see like he stands up after this happened. He's got blood on his ear that he was hit. And then it's a projectile. There's no like he was shot with a gun, shot with a rifle, whatever. Like there was all this fake stuff, or not fake, but like they're using all these words where they can't just come straight out and say what was going on. And then come to find out that there's a lot of things that like this building was the only one within sight of the whole other or the rally that, the Secret Service or the sniper was on top of one of them. And then there was one other one. And so they didn't have anyone on this other high ground. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, that's when we go back to talking about high ground and positive control. It makes absolutely no sense, because what you do is you turn from the position of the podium and you do what's called line of sight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me who has line of sight. That's all you do. It's a beautiful 360 sweep of who has line of sight, who has high ground. That's it, right? Now here's some curious things. They're curious. They could have been accidents of reality. So a guy gets on a roof with a weapon, low crawls into position and takes a headshot.
Mm-hmm.
A 20-year amateur takes a headshot. Most amateurs go center mass.
Yep.
Yet he took a headshot. That's, again, it could have been that he wasn't taking a headshot. Maybe he was aiming center mass, and it just so happened that it went right, toward the president's or the ex-president's ear. I don't know. It's just very, very curious stuff that this is why conspiracy theories get built,
Yep.
right? Because of all this weirdness, all these things that are really tough to explain. And, I've got the photos, the overhead aerial photos of the area right literally on my screen. And it's kind of one of those unforgivable things is if you're doing close protection, you're like, how did you not have that covered?
Right.
How did you not have that covered? Well, we had line of sight with our snipers. I'm like, I don't care. It's the only structure. It's literally the only other structure that makes no sense. So yeah, there was some, and again, remember, these are all people.
Right.
And so they could have been short staffed that day. They could have made a lot of mistakes. And you're just going to have to unpack it. But it's the thing I always say to people about plane crashes, right? As a pilot, plane crashes do not happen with a single event.
Right.
They're a chain of events. You make a lot of stupid mistakes because you have a lot of the abilities. We know from reading my book, there's a lot of times when I should be dead. But what happened is remember, I was trained to do what? To break the chain of events and to stop a cascading event that's going to get me killed, right? And it's the same situation here. We just went through a whole chain of events that seem really odd connected together that almost gives you this conspiracy vibe. But then it really could have just been a bad chain of events. So we do have to take both things into consideration and not jump to conclusions and go ahead and go, But it is kind of an unforgivable admission when you look and go, who is in charge?
Yeah.
How did you blow that? Especially in a really, really toxic environment that we're in, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of a toxic environment. So, again, I don't know what to make of it. There's a commonality to all these assassinations during my lifetime or near assassinations. It's this lone wolf concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one individual. It's not an organization. And so that's what also drives a lot of this conspiracy stuff. And so again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a conspiracy, but geez, guys, let's see, 4 assassinations in the 60s, one attempt on Reagan, several attempts on other people, all of them lone wolves, all of them. Doesn't it seem a little odd after a while that you don't have any organizational backing?
Well, and it's amazing too, because, as the media goes on and as we're listening to it, like I told you, there's some of the things that I noticed with it. Cause like I said, I read stories. I don't normally get on and listen. And I'm like, shit, well, I don't have a TV. I don't have any news channel. So I'm like trying to figure out how to find a news channel because I read it, typically. And when I finally found one, it was kind of like, well, there's this and there's that. Like they were saying that he was a Republican and he was, blah, 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 like Antifa, and he was this and he was that. And then he was a Democrat and he donated to Biden's campaign. And like, there's all these things that they're talking about, but they're not talking about, hey, did you just watch this whole thing unfold? Like I watched the video that I saw of it. And like, I started making observations on my own through the whole situation. Like he turned, and if he hadn't turned at that right time, it would have went right in his ear hole. He would have been dead. He got, by the grace of God, he turned at the right time to get shot, get grazed in the ear. And no one knows really like how bad it was. Did it just nick him? Did it go through his ear? What happened? But he was lucky. And I'm disappointed in the fact that, like you said, there's this amount of negativity around him, whether he is who you voted for, whether you like him, whether you hate him, whatever, you don't ever wish death upon anyone. And it's insane to me that all these things that have been said about him or have been said about Biden or have been said about whoever, no matter how you feel about the situation, in the end, we're talking about a human life here that someone was trying to take from someone else. So it's just insane to me.
Yeah, and I discount all of the background material. I just throw all that out. Talk to me about background stuff in a year. I don't care.
Right.
Let's see the important lessons. The important lessons are Where were the protection failures, right? Let's get to those because he goes on to another location. Matter of fact, the Republican National Convention starts today. So he's in a different venue. Let's look at what we can do to improve. Forget all the background material. That will all get sorted out. And I think that's just the media trying to be first with everything. And my point is, let's not even concern ourselves with that.
Yeah.
Let's make sure the man's okay, right? We got to talk about the other people's injured, right? The other person that died, right?
Yep.
And remember, there's other people here that just went to a political event, and these are the things that we have to kind of tone it down. And let me give kudos to the Biden campaign. They pulled down all their ads, all their attack stuff. I'm not a big watcher of all that things, but I was told by insiders that they pulled down all their attack ads and they're basically just chilling for a minute. And I believe Trump's people pulled theirs down.
Yeah.
I think it's time to simmer down a little bit. Let's turn the temperature down. It's not necessary. It really isn't. Can we make this? I know we like to throw mud, but can we just make this about whether or not we have good policy and whether or not you have the ability to run the country? Let's focus on the important things and let's not get lost. And remember, at the end of the day, guys, we're red, white, and blue. We're all on the same team.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not get this confused. Because again, we as much as we want, as I always tell people, Joe Biden's my president right now. And somebody goes, "Well, you didn't vote for him." Doesn't matter. He's president of the United States.
Yep.
That's it. Guy. He's my president right now. And what does that mean? Well, technically, if I was still in service, it would be I'll take a bullet for Joe Biden. Why? He's my president.
Yep.
And you, as we've always said, you salute the office, not necessarily the man. And so it's the office that we hold the highest esteem to. If the man or woman doesn't quite measure up, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You look at the office, and so that's tough. But it's time for us to ratchet this crap down a level, and
get back to what it really
be
is
kind
all
again.
about.
Be kind again. That's exactly right.
And you brought up the person who was killed. There was a person who was killed here. I mean, and this is an innocent bystander at a rally that was there to support their candidate, and they lost their life. And I have to tell you, I was a little disappointed, not disappointed, but just kind of taken aback by, I had saw the interview. There was an interview with a gentleman who actually was right near this whole situation. And they asked him, like they were talking to him about it, what he saw, what he witnessed. He was sitting near the person who had died. And he was just like, they asked him, they said, "Are you okay?" Because he's telling the story. And it's like, "Are you okay?" And he said, and it was kind of weird the way that he responded. He goes, "No, I'm fine." He goes, "I think that with the way that this world is now, with social media, video games, all this stuff, we've seen so much of this, we're kind of desensitized. So it didn't really bother me as much as it probably would have 20 years ago." To say that, where this world has gone to the fact that death in front of you, when you saw a guy get, literally, he said that there was brain matter on the ground and someone's holding this person's head and they've died right in front of their eyes. And he's like, "This is, I'm fine. It's not that big of a deal." And to me, that's just insane because life is fragile. And
they had the ER doctor who just happened to be in the crowd, right? He was an ER doctor. He was the one treating the guy, trying to keep him alive. And it was like, he couldn't do anything for him. Once again, life is precious. Every life is precious. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that. Because it's when you see somebody that's passing, that's someone's brother, that's someone's father, right? That's someone's grandfather, whatever it may be. That person's important to some group of people, and let's not devalue them.
Yep, exactly. So, just some somber note, something to think about today is just remember that life is life. It doesn't matter whose life it is. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you like it or not. We are a huge power. I would say that the number one person in this world, if we think about it, we talk about it with sports or anything else, like we're world champions if we win the World Series. We're world champions if we win the Super Bowl. We are the biggest power in this world. And essentially our people are the highest powered ones because we're the strongest country in this whole world. And Joe Biden, whether you like him or not, is your president. Donald Trump is running for. They're all human beings. They're all people who deserve to live, whatever you think. The reality is that it's human life. So just remember that.
Yeah, being kind doesn't cost anything, folks. Just be kind. Come on, man.
All right. Well, that is our show today. We talked a little bit about, kind of end on a sombering note. We had a really good, exciting, if you haven't checked it out, this is Morning Coffee with myself and Robert Watson. You can go check it out. We haven't had a review on the show on Apple Podcasts in a while. If you are an Android user, please go over, give it a 5-star review or 5-star rating, because you can't give it a review. If you can go over to Apple Podcasts and please give us an honest review about what you think about what's going on here. It'd be great to have those reviews. I haven't had a new review on the podcast in over a year, and I'm almost to 50,000 episodes. So it's kind of funny how those reviews have kind of disappeared. You can also go follow on YouTube. You can watch the videos. We do it live here on TikTok. I want to thank our sponsor, Magic Mind. You can go ahead and head over there to magicmind.com. Get yourself some of their awesome energy shots. Use code WEST20 at checkout and get yourself 20% off a one-time purchase or 48% off your subscription. That's the way I get it. I have a month's supply of it, one a day. Really good stuff. And also Robert's book, Ours Victorious, is out. We talk about that on Wednesday. We're almost through it. We've been going through it for close to a year now. So I'm excited to get through that, get on to the next one, but come check it out. Robert, thanks for hanging out today.
Appreciate you.
And we will see you Wednesday.
Y'all take care.